run, and it also ends up being the day that you're going to turn in your gear. Now, the 70.3 for Ironman has two different ways of doing things. A lot of times there's a central transition area, which basically means that it's the same. So like Chattanooga has one transition area. So you come back to both T1 and T2 are in the same place. Ironman Ohio is not like that. Ironman Ohio has two separate transition areas. So the first transition area is right near the water, of course, right? Because you're going to walk out of the swim and go right to your bike. That's at Delaware State Park. It's about 6 miles away from the Ohio Wesleyan University where T2 is, or transition 2. So to continue checking in, after you've gone ahead and put your stickers on wherever you're going, you're given 2 separate gear bags. One bag for bike, and you guessed it, a second bag for run. So what you want to do is go ahead and bring your bike to Delaware Bay. And if you'd like to, you can always bring your bike bag up there with you. Now, I don't suggest it. I suggest just bringing that the next day, but you can. There are some where they want you to, they try to tell you the mandatory, but you get to go to T2 and T1 the day of the race anyway. So the reason to go up to T1 this time is to just drop your bike off. Now, depending on when you're going to do that, it does tend to get a little crowded. The state park is a 2-lane highway. So if you're going up there a little bit later in the day, you might find yourself stuck behind some cars, and it takes a little while to get through the state park in order to get to the beach to drop your bike off. But that's all you're going to do. You're going to basically, you're going to go, put your bike on the rack, and leave. And that's it. That's what you're doing on Saturday, at least at T1. So we went ahead and we did this, and it took us a little bit because we were a little bit later because we biked and ran, first. The next thing to do is to head over to T2, and then you can drop your run gear off. Now, they're saying that it's mandatory. They're like, we want you to drop your run gear off. So we were very cautious about this. So we did go ahead and at least drop something off. Now, my running shoes are particular, and I don't like to leave those. So I just basically dropped my run belt and my hat and my glasses inside the bag, and I tied it to the bike rack. And that was basically it. Everything else I brought in the next day. So that is your responsibilities for Saturday. Drop your bike, drop your run gear off, and you're done, and you're ready to go. So that night, just to give you a little coaching advice, on Friday, so I'm stepping back one day, okay? On Friday night, as a coach, I always tell my athletes, go to bed early. Do not wake up with an alarm or with anything. Sleep until you wake up. Because why? That's the night you're going to get your best sleep. Because Saturday night, you're going to be anxious. And most athletes don't get the greatest of sleep the night before the race. No matter how many times you've done it, you've always got a little bit of anxiety. My first few 70.3s, I didn't sleep at all. I basically tossed and turned and didn't really get any kind of sleep whatsoever. Lately, I've been able to go to bed the night before and at least get 4 to 5 good hours before the anxiety kind of creeps back up on me. And that's basically what happened this time. So the next day, Sunday, race day. That's always a lot of fun. So I usually pop up because I always want to make sure that I've got a good breakfast, because that breakfast has got to hold me through waiting for the swim and then getting through the swim before I can start nutrition on the bike. So got up and donned my Moxie racing kit, because I race for Moxie nationally, and had my breakfast. I had some coffee. I chatted with my teammates, Pamela Swing Baller and Sonia Olson. So we had our breakfast together. We got together and we put our bags together. So with me, I had my shoes and socks for the run. and my bike nutrition. So the first thing we had to do is we basically went backwards. We went back to Ohio Wesleyan University and we set up our T2, which is basically to put down our shoes, socks, make sure that they were open so we can step into them as fast as possible. Race belt with whatever nutrition is on there for the run, with our bib number, and hat and glasses. At least that's my preference. Then hop back in the car, or in this case, we got lucky and there were shuttles. So we walked over to the shuttle, we got onto the shuttle, and we moved through the city, and unfortunately took the very long way. I think we made like 3 or 4 circles around the city before the bus driver actually found his way to the Delaware State Park. But you know what? Things happen, and it's okay. And at this point, I mean, it's 5:45 in the morning. We're 6 miles away, and the race doesn't start until 7. So, we're still in pretty good shape. We get to T1, to the beach. It was about 6 o'clock. And we have with us the rest of our bike gear, which I brought my helmet, my bike shoes, and the nutrition for the bike. So at this point, they allow you into transition 2 to set it up. I also have with me a morning clothes bag. So it was a little chilly. It wasn't bad. It was like 65 degrees. So I did have a sweatshirt with me and an extra hat. I'm kind of vain like that, waking up with bedhead. It's not my favorite in the world. So I usually have a hat that day. Shoot me, right? So we get to T2 and go ahead and lay out my stuff for that transition. Check my bike, make sure that the gears are going through. I set up my computer to make sure that when I get on the bike, I can start it, and I can look down to make sure that I can have all my power settings set up. I'm on the right screen. I'm in the right gear. My shoes are open and sitting on top of the bag, on top of a towel. There is a bottle of water there so I can wash my feet real quick before I step into my shoes. My helmet's sitting on top of my bike so I can make the fastest transition possible. At that point, I make sure that I know where I'm coming in and where I'm biking out of. At this point, got some time to kill. So with my morning clothes bag, I step out of transition and I continue to hydrate a little bit. I've got some water with me, and at this point I had a new product called SOS, which was for pure hydration. And I tended to walk around and started seeing some friends and socializing and trying to keep myself from getting too anxious at this point. I'm able to step into the water a little bit, find out what the temperature was, and it was a brisk 79 degrees. The announcements come out, and they basically say, okay, if you want to drop your morning clothes bag, drop your morning clothes bag right now, because we're going to shut down transition, and we're going to take the morning clothes bag back to Ohio Wesleyan University, so it's there when you get there. So I went ahead and dropped that. I had to take off my sweatshirt, my hat, grab my goggles, my swim cap, and proceeded to head over to the beach. Ironman has started a new procedure as far as swim goes for a lot of the 70.3s. It used to be a wave start. So basically it was done by age group. Yours truly prefers that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what they've gone to now is what we call a self-seated start. So they put up signs. Well, they basically don't put them up. It's volunteers that are holding them with the estimated time that it'll take you to finish the swim. And you line up behind your estimated time. So basically now you've got a big, giant, long line of athletes. And what happens is every 3 seconds, 2 athletes jump into the water. So it's about 6:45, 6:40, something like that, and everybody's starting to line up behind their waves so they can get in as close to their seated start as they possibly can. Or maybe some of them are going to the back, saying that, hey, I'm going to, be slow today, so let me just step back for everybody else. The water temperature was 79 degrees. So this was not a wetsuit legal swim for age group athletes. They do offer the ability to go in with a wetsuit, but first of all, you're last. You're 10 minutes after everybody else starts, and you are not eligible for any kind of age group rewards, which is okay. And I never, ever discourage anybody from doing that. My biggest issue is that, depending on what the weather is, you're starting late, so you're getting on the bike late, which means that at the hottest point of the day, you're in the run. Now, we were lucky. The weather was mild. In Delaware and Columbus, it actually was very nice compared to here in Tampa, where it was 92 degrees with a 70% humidity, and it was, really hot. The humidity was kind of down. It started the day around 65, 66, and it really didn't get to higher than like 82, which for me wasn't bad. For anybody else coming around, if you're not from my area down here in Tampa, it probably was just normal or maybe even a little bit warm. For us, it actually was pretty mild, so I was pretty excited about that. So everybody's in line. It gets to be about 10 to 7, and they start the national anthem, which was done by a gentleman who had a very nice voice and did an outstanding job. So that usually gets people starting to rev up. There's one thing I really do. I know this is a little bit of a tangent. One thing I just love about the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem here in America, and I imagine it's the same way across the pond. I haven't raced in Europe or anything, so I don't know what it's like. But I know here, it's one of my favorite parts. Is that starting of the race, the national anthem goes off, and all of a sudden you get this ripple effect. Is that in front of you, closer to wherever the speaker is or wherever the person singing is, it just drops. All of a sudden, people are talking, and then it's silence, and then that ripple effect goes all the way through, and all you hear is a Star Spangled Banner. If he wasn't singing, you could hear a pin drop in the grass, and the respect is absolutely amazing. And especially with Ironman Ohio and any Ironman event in the United States, it also brings in a lot of, foreign visitors from other countries to race as well, which is great. I love racing with, a plethora of different people, but they're just as respectful. So it's one of my favorite parts. It really gets me going and gets me ready for the race. All right, so the swim at Ironman Ohio is a triangle. It consists of 20 buoys, and they're about 100 meters apart. And you hit number 19, and you keep the buoys on your right. And then when you'll cross that one, and you'll go, and the last buoy, which is a red buoy, you'll actually stay to your left. So you kind of go in between the last orange buoy and the red buoy, and you go in between, and it kind of tells you, okay, here's where you're going to step in to go to swim exit. But it is a triangle. Delaware Lake is not my favorite in the world. First of all, it was very warm. It was 79 degrees, which I should be used to, right? Because most of the time I'm swimming in a pool that's 81 to 85, which I'm not happy about either. But it was warm, and it was murky. You really couldn't see your hand. If you were to look out in front of you and look for your hand as it was crossing past your goggle, you won't see it. It's very, very, very dark, and you really couldn't see anything going on inside of the lake. So you just had to basically sight off the buoys that are on your right. Other than that, it wasn't bad. Now, on the self-seating start, here's the reason why I'm not happy with this new version, Ironman self-seated start. If you are with the same caliber and people going the same speed, you're always with a bunch of people. Now, with 2,600 people going in at a self-seated start, and you're seated with other people that are going to go the same time as you, you're never going to find clean water. You're always going to have people around you. Now, I don't really care. For me, it doesn't bother me that much that people kind of like nudge me and move things around. Some people are a little bit more aggressive, which I